And we are live on this Wednesday. Welcome to Redacted. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natali Morris.
So glad to have you guys all here as we navigate this crazy clown world together. We don't have an agenda other than the truth here on this show, and we've got a lot of truth to uncover today. Specifically, the DNC protesters. What is going on with those protesters? Why are these masked men showing up, causing all of this violence? Who's paying them? We're going to try to get to the bottom of that. Also, we just got some major economic bombshell news on the jobs front and what data basically the Biden administration has been hiding from all of you. Turns out the economy is way worse than they've been telling you. I know, shock.
And so is the border crisis, And it has been since 2019, but went up precipitously in 2021 when the Biden-Harris administration took office. This comes from a new report from the Department of Homeland Security. They say they have lost almost 300,000 unaccompanied minors that crossed over the southern border. And in fact, the numbers are much worse than that. We're going to take a look at them, and we're going to point the finger. We're going to point the finger right at Kamala Harris. I'm sorry to say we're going to do that.
Yeah, we're going to do all of that. We're going to get to so much more. We're going to talk about the UK. We're going to talk about vaccine ID cards in Portugal and so much more. But I do want to get to this bombshell breaking news right now on the economy. An economic bombshell basically just went off in the United States, and it shows just how bad the American economy is right now. So these are the annual benchmark revisions. So these are the non-farm payrolls, not to get into too much of the weeds, but basically the Bureau of Labor Statistics has now revised these numbers that the Biden administration told us about. And it turns out 818,000 jobs that the Biden-Harris White House claimed that they created do not exist. Wouldn't you love to know? To me, this is like criminal, because you're lying to the American people. You're telling the American people that you created nearly 1 million jobs, and you're using it to curry political favor, and it's a total lie. You're lying to the American people.
Well, yes, especially because this is the one metric that they've been using to say that the economy is recovering. So they know inflation is wild, up in wild numbers. They know that the dollar has been devalued. They know that wages are down. They know all of these things, but they've been saying, yes, but jobs numbers are up. Turns out that's a lie. So this is the only thing they've got. And we see them repeating this over and over again. There was a hilarious video with Don Lemon over the weekend that was trending, where he was telling people, Trump voters who were saying, no, the economy was better under Trump. And he says, no, the numbers don't support that. This is all they had. Now there are no numbers that support that we are better off under the Biden-Harris administration.
So Don Lemon using basically fake numbers to go out and kind of provoke people on the boardwalk, which was hilarious. So yes, the Biden administration, Harris administration padded the numbers to make it look like they created nearly 1 million jobs that they didn't.
This is a huge revision down, 818,000 fewer jobs. This is basically the government's overstated the amount of people in the workforce. And even when you look under this, manufacturing was down 115,000 people. So this is a revision down, a significant revision down, the largest in 15 years that we've seen. And it basically says that the government has now overstated the amount of people who are working in this workforce. It shows weakness in the job markets over the past year that we didn't realize was there, but now we know is there. So again, 818,000 overall jobs down, manufacturing down 115,000 in this. And if you just wrote construction, down 45,000. So these numbers are huge numbers in revisions down.
So those are jobs that existed at this time last year, and they don't exist this year. So at this time last year, 800,000 people more had jobs, and they don't now.
We've already exposed how they lied about the crime rates, how the Biden administration lied about the crime rates, and they hid the real FBI crime data. And they worked in conjunction with the FBI to hide these numbers, by the way. We've exposed that. We had a former FBI data analyst on the show to explain exactly how the Biden administration is faking these numbers, so you don't believe anything that they're saying. And now they're caught lying about jobs data. What else are they lying about? I ask you. What do you think? Just so you understand what kind of a shell game this is, okay? Almost all of the jobs that were added were government jobs, and they were indirectly paid for by taxpayers. In other words, government-funded jobs, not real jobs, government jobs. Just take a look at this. As E.J. Antoni points out, More than half the jobs added in the last year were either in government or paid for by tax dollars. Like when the government gives a grant to a hospital, which then uses that money to hire a nurse, it's essentially an indirect hire by the government. Look at this: healthcare, government, leisure, hospitality, construction. So more than half of them were government jobs or paid for indirectly by taxpayers. Again, what a shell game. So 2 weeks ago, though, I have a question for Jerome Powell, because he's in Jackson Hole, Wyoming right now. Of course, they're having their big Fed kind of private meeting right now. And they're planning on slashing interest rates in September, right? So did Powell know these data points 2 weeks ago when he said this about the labor market, or is he lying? Watch.
Overall, a broad set of indicators suggest that conditions in the labor market have returned to about where they stood on the eve of the pandemic. Strong, but not overheated.
So did he have that data? Was he lying to us?
Did he have bad data like the rest of us?
I mean, this is the largest revision of labor numbers in 15 years, folks. So also the average monthly jobs increase in the past year was just revised lower as well. 31% from 218,000 down to 150,000. This is a new payroll change number. Take a look at this on your screen here. It looks like the Italian flag. You can see that there. It looks the average monthly payroll changes. Let me get to this other page because it looks like we won't have it there. Let's take it and cut to it. There we go. So there's the average monthly payrolls change, pre-revision, down 31% from 218,000, which they told us, down to 150,000. Unbelievable. As DC Drano says, he says, let's see here. We'll put this up here. Next image. Next image. There we go. Nothing to see here. Just the biggest downward jobs numbers since the great financial crisis of 2008. Biden and Kamala lied about almost 1 million jobs being created that don't actually exist, just like when they said the border is secure and crime is down.
Now, when you think about how the government only allows us to see certain reports and records and hides a lot more than we actually get to see. I mean, how did we even get to see this is the question, knowing how much information they hide from us. Were they just wondering if maybe we wouldn't see it ourselves, or maybe worried that someone else would do the math? It's shocking to the fact that they've at least admitted to it, but it is what consumers already feel is just the circling of the drain of the economy based on every metric that we have. Again, the value of the dollar, inflation, and now joblessness. So what do they got? So stop saying the economy is good and recovering, because the numbers just don't add up, and math.
Well, you want to, and you want to see how corrupt the mainstream media is. I mean, the mainstream media, if you look at like Drudge, not that I encourage any of you to like read Drudge Report, but like even just like an example, like Drudge Report this afternoon, there's the top stories have nothing to do with the economy. Like they're totally ignoring this story. They're talking about the election will come down to 7 states. Democrats are the party of freedom. Stock market now says there's a 64% chance that Kamala Harris wins. Tonight, Bill Clinton's big return to the stage at the DNC, Michelle Obama. There's nothing on the top stories about this major economic story, which shows the largest revision in 15 years, which is a major kick in the pants to the labor market, which we've been talking about here. Either a lot of these jobs being replaced by AI, or a lot of these jobs being replaced by illegal immigrants.
Right. And so when you see, these media, what they call man on the street, when the media goes around to people and they're saying, oh, why would you vote for Trump? And then they're being told, oh, because the economy was better under Trump and my finances were better. The media is telling them, no, actually, that's not true. You have a short-term memory. And it's gaslighting at its worst when we see, again, the numbers just don't support that.
Indeed. So we've got more news to get to here in a second. Another big story that we're following for you is what happened with this, what just happened with all of these Social Security numbers, of course, that were just hacked. And today's video is sponsored by Aura, and it's really important time to be talking about them because hackers may have stolen the Social Security numbers of every American. Over 2.9 billion records were stolen from the National Public Data, which offers personal information to employers, private investigators, staffing agencies, and others doing background checks. This stolen records includes a person's full name, address, date of birth, social security numbers, phone number, along with alternate names and birthdays. And guess what? This hacker group have reportedly released this information for free online now. So if you weren't taking precautions when your personal information online before, this could be a huge wake-up call. You've never been more vulnerable online than you are right now. But I'm not too worried about it because we use Aura. And that's why you should check out our friends at Aura by going to aura.com/redacted to get a 2-week free trial, because Aura alerts you if they find your phone number, your email, your social security number on the dark web. They're going to let you know fast if anyone's trying to use this information to access credit card information, bank accounts, and they basically give up to $5 million in identity theft insurance should the worst case scenario happen, which is unbelievable. They also provide a bunch of other features to keep you safe online, all inside of one application. So go to aura.com/redacted. Try it for 14 days for free. They will be that'll be enough time for you to, for Aura to find out if any of your personal data is exposed. Again, I mean, you can go to our link, aura.com/redacted, to try it for 14 days for free. This will be enough time for you to find if they've gotten any data out there on the dark web. Are there deep state Antifa agitators being paid to show up at the DNC, to mingle inside of the protests that were already organized, to tear down police barriers, to set American flags on fire? Well, that's exactly what appears to be happening. Terry Newsom, host of Behind Enemy Lines, was right there. By the way, Terry was also standing right behind Ray Epps on January 6th and sees a lot of similarities to these agitators who were there, protesting organically out of the blue. And Terry joins us now. Terry, you were in the thick of it yesterday in Chicago, and it looked pretty terrifying. We see these protesters burning American flags, these agitators getting in fights with you and others. Who are these guys? Are these Antifa guys?
Yeah, absolutely. They're, I guess, the quote professional Antifa guys. There's some that are working full time, like the couple gentlemen that was in the story I sent you, Jeremy and Jason Mahanum, full-time Antifa guys. They agitate, they harass the whole city of Chicago, parents, and they did exactly what they did at January 6th, these group of Antifa guys. I did not see the Hammond brothers there. They're there somewhere. And what they did was agitated their own people, started harassing, and got them to redirect from the parade, which they're supposed to do a oval and go back to the original park. And those agitators, the gentleman you have a photo of, was harassing his own people and forced them and pushed them to go to the barriers that were penetrated on day one. And then they all participated in removing the barriers, and they're calling them, come on in, just like January 6th. Come on in, come on in.
This is crazy. So let's put this picture up. This guy here, he's wearing like a bandana. And so the protest parade is sort of coming down, but it's like 150 different organizations, you say. So it's not just like one sort of monolithic group, right? It's just 150 different organizations. They're coming down the street. Yeah. This guy, whoever he is, along with others, start to redirect them to go towards the barriers. Am I understanding you correctly?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And for the parade, there's marshals, right, that are with the organization, like, the Palestinian Hamas and whatever. And they actually circled these guys because these guys were pushing. We thought there was going to be a fight, but, they were pushing their own guys, supposedly, right? And then these marshals got around them, trying to contain the agitation. But these guys were much more aggressive and forceful than these other folks. And they were arguing over, go this way. And then they're going, like, go that way. It's kind of funny. And eventually they started following him and his cluster of the militant Antifa guys. They're all black. They had the metal shields on the back and stuff like that. And as they got closer to the barriers, this same guy got in a circle with his other Antifa guys that are blocking so you can't see, and they changed their clothes, typical Antifa fashion, took his bandana off and his hair puffed up, and then they went and they started attacking the unpenetratable fencing that the Chicago said was, and they started taking them out and sliding them out, and then some of the guys would get on there, come on, just like on January 6th. Another thing they're saying, as they were walking up, whose streets? Our streets. Whose streets? Our streets. The same thing we heard at the Capitol. Whose house? Our house. Whose house? Our house. Similar chants to agitate, to get people, excited, motivated, and they did the exact same thing here. And when once they got,
what do you think's behind it? I mean, who's behind it? Who's funding this? So these Antifa guys come in wearing masks, so we don't see them. I mean, the obvious feeling is that these are feds in some relation. That there's some motivation to make these guys look crazy, that they're burning American flags, but they're being paid, and it's organized. So who's behind this, do you think?
Yeah, I'm certain you hear. I mean, all of us hear about this, right? George Soros, the dark money. There's guys that are full time. That's all they do. They harass parents. I mean, all day long. Right? We have events. They threaten to shoot them up. They're full time doing this. They can't have jobs. I mean, a lot of them are low lives. Those other guys I sent you, decade in prison and stuff. I don't know. I mean, they don't work. So this is their job, and they're getting funding. I wish at some point in time, we keep talking about Soros. We keep talking about dark money. It's coming from somewhere. And then they hit those signs. You just see the signs everywhere, like stacked. I mean, just laying there at the park in Ben Hour filming, just tons. I mean, thousands of them. So somebody's. It costs a lot of money for what they had set up yesterday.
Yeah, and the digital infrastructure, as you pointed out, Jim Hoft over at the Gateway Pundit also published some of their digital communications and organizing behind the scenes. So this is all orchestrated. I mean, we also saw vans of individuals pulling up and so forth. So, the back end sort of digital communications is also very orchestrated, right?
Yeah, they were using some sort of Russian encrypted apps that they were using to communicate amongst themselves, like similar to a Telegram, but it's a Russian version of Telegram that they were all communicating. And they were well organized, and I think it's going to get worse throughout the week, right? And as Antifa has their different little loosely coupled, which is true, but there's someone like at the helm, right, that's coordinating on who does what, who gets arrested at what time. Like this guy Stevie O who got arrested. It makes you wonder. Like, do you want to get taken out or arrested on day one, and how they plan out the rest of the days? Because there's going to be more stuff tonight. There's going to be more stuff tomorrow. And there's somebody at the helm, right, collaborating amongst them all. I think it's those Hammond brothers.
I mean, if you think about it, right, I mean, I don't want to be conspiratorial here, but if they're organized and their goal is to go into these groups and then make them appear as if they are anti-American, right? So these Antifa guys went into this protest and started burning.
To your point about who and why someone's doing this, I forgot the name of the National Lawyers Association. They have these green hats on, and it was announced 2 days before they will take care of everybody that gets arrested from the protesters. Everybody. So that to me is a dog whistle. Hey, we got your back, right? So Ben and I were, we were messing with them and try to get them on camera. Hey, could you help us? Hey, if, they just throw milk on us. We don't talk to you. We won't talk. I go, oh, you're only here for talking to Antifa or Palestinian. No comments, sir. So they're there helping them. Somebody's funding them too, right, Clayton? A bunch of attorneys and people that are, watching all this stuff occur. And then another thing, like tonight, I think at 5 o'clock, I can't make it, but they finally gave the Jewish people a permit right across from Antifa and the Palestine thing. So I mean, so I'm glad the Jewish people have a chance to voice their concerns, but that's going to be crazy, right? I mean, it's right across the street. Why did they do it? Did they do that on purpose? We'll know later tonight,
of course.
Right?
No, of course they did it on purpose. I mean, again, I think this is all orchestrated. Everyone watching right now, don't be fooled, because you see it all over Fox News last night. They had all these reporters out there covering the violent protests and all of this outside, right? So any sort of message from any Palestinians who were there or whatever, who are like against what's going on in Gaza, it gets totally muffled up by what's happening by these agitators and these Antifa guys, right? As you mentioned, 150 different organizations taking place in these protests. You think they all came there with violent intent? These guys get a bullhorn out and they say, come this way. So I want to know, like, who's behind this? What is the purpose of this? And now you're going to have Jewish protesters given a spot right next to them. They're doing it on purpose because they want to see violent clashes on TV. That's what they're doing.
Yeah. I don't understand why they would want that. There's obviously a reason. This is very well orchestrated. And, you know, they got I don't know if you saw, they got bleed kits put out everywhere. It's like crazy. Yeah. The city of Chicago put those out. Like what the military guys carry. It's a civilian version of getting shot and having a bleed kit, you know, and everything's boarded up.
These guys changed. Can you talk about, Pritzker, I mean, to talk about these guys changing their clothes, like what's the motivation of these Antifa guys? Why are they changing their outfits? And you caught it on camera with this guy that we have here with this bandana. Like, why do they change their clothes suddenly? What's the purpose?
So they changed their clothes from when they had the interaction, the conflict with their own people, the Palestinians, and tell them to follow them, right? The protesters, the Hamas. And which makes really no sense to me because we're there filming. So they walk from there a block and a half down from the corner of the park to where all the fencing is on two sides, right? Police on this side, us, and then the street is open, right? And they had the fencing up. 20 feet from the fencing, they got in a big circle and people took turns changing their clothes. You know, so we're sitting there watching them. I know the intent. The intent is to try to trick law enforcement, but it wasn't that tricky or sneaky. I mean, they're doing it there. You know, that guy, he took his bandana off. His hair was really fluffy. He put on different shorts, a different shirt, and some of the same people did. Then they proceeded to the fencing and started taking the fencing down. So I'm not really sure. It wasn't really a top secret 007, right. Change that.
Well, I would love to know. I mean, we have all this facial recognition tools now, right? That's why they're wearing these masks. They don't want you to know where they're coming from. The reason they're wearing masks is they don't want you to track them. They don't want you to see that these people they have a history of being paid. I wouldn't doubt that a lot of these guys are bussed in similarly to what we saw in the college protests. You had these protests on college campuses. We know that George Soros funded protesters were paid to go and agitate on these campuses. That had been reported multiple times from multiple different sources. So we know that they're bussing these people in order to, create more drama so that the television cameras show up and they say, look at all these violent protests. Like something is going on here.
Yeah, I have a facial scan go. My IT security good friend is running a facial scan on this guy. So hopefully the images were good enough, because they have to, so it's going through the system right now. So hopefully I'll have a name for this.
Good. Well, Terry, be safe out there. I know we're going to see what happens. What do you expect is going to happen tonight, Wednesday night at the DNC?
Yeah, I think they're railing up a little worse at nighttime, right? It's going to get worse as it progresses. And I'm assuming during Kamala Harris's speech, it might be, the worst. These people want to do this. These people like to do this. That's why they're here. They're not only here just because they say they have a voice that they want to be heard. These are scumbags, right? They enjoy this stuff, and it's probably the highlight of their lives.
Oh, for sure. Well, Terry Newsom is there. He is hosted Behind Enemy Lines. He is literally behind enemy lines right on the streets of this violence in Chicago and these deep state agitators who are being paid to be there. Terry, great to see you. Thanks so much.
Clayton, sorry, one more thing. They're using Behind Enemy Lines. I don't know. Did you see those stories? That they used Behind Enemy Lines. They're doing that on purpose. It's Behind Enemy Lines to associate it with me. Just Google search it.
Their electronic communication.
Their website and the name of the one organization, the violent militant one, is called Behind Enemy Lines on purpose. So I forgot to send that to you. Yeah, I got all these messages last night. Says that you? They attacked the consulate. Behind Enemy Lines attacked them last night. That's the Chicago guys. So
to make people believe that it's you and your team using that name again. They will stop at nothing. Terry, thank you so much. That's unbelievable. Thanks, Terry.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Terry. Appreciate it. And we just got someone here in the chat just saying Soros gets his money. Everyone's saying Soros behind it. G. Fontaine, thank you for your $1 Rumble rant. Says Soros gets this money laundered under the guise of philanthropy from the federally funded National Endowment for Democracy, the NED, funding all sides with chaos being the short-term goal. Yeah, I mean, what's his goal at the end of it, right? You have these protests and you flood these individuals. And then Terry, who he just texted me and he said behind enemy lines, this guy that you saw with the hair and the bandana, he's from the New York chapter, and they've been able to sort of track him down now. They had a guy doing some facial recognition, so they were just able to track him down. So, yeah, these guys come from out of state. Yeah. They're bussed in on purpose to create, and he's saying this is exactly like January 6th. He was standing behind Ray Epps, watching these guys direct the peaceful protesters, come this way, through this gate over here. Everyone's going in the Capitol, come this way. These same people. Anyway.
Well, we have more news to get to. We're going to talk about the new Homeland Security report on missing migrant children to the tune of 300,000. That is the amount that the government is admitting to, but we worked through the math and it looks like there's actually a lot more. And guess what? They started really ramping up in 2021. Clayton, who took office in 2021?
Kamala Harris.
The Biden-Harris administration. Absolutely right. So we're going to look into these numbers because guess what? I mean, you present these to Democrats, right? And you're like, this is bad. And they're like, do you want Trump to win? We can't look at that right now.
We can't pay attention to the children.
The border's fine. Those are MAGA talking points. Well, we're not MAGA. We're not anything. We're independents, and we are going to talk about them because we're humanists. So hold on to your butts. But first, we're going to talk about our friends over at the Wellness Company because they have a new contagion kit that will help you make sure that your family is prepared for any eventuality. Now, of course, we've lived through a crazy news cycle this year, and we don't know what's coming next. Just today in the newsletter, we covered how the Biden administration has revised its nuclear war plan to include the possibility of being simultaneously in a nuclear war with China, Russia, and North Korea all at the same time. What does that mean for us? If we're in this nuclear post-apocalyptic hell, it means that we have to prepare our family for whatever eventuality we can. That's why our family ordered a contagion emergency kit from the Wellness Company, and you can too. This is your frontline defense against whatever they throw at us. It comes packed with ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, a Z-Pack, Tamiflu, all kinds of things with a nebulizer as well. So you can rest easy knowing that you have an emergency medical kit on hand that doesn't just have Band-Aids and Neosporin, although don't knock Neosporin. Ask Clayton, I am never without in my purse, Neosporin, but it goes even beyond that. So you should look into this for your family too by going to twc.health/redacted. You can save $30 at checkout if you use our promo code redacted. One more time, check it out for yourself and your family at twc.health/redacted and use our promo code redacted.
Free speech in our chat says, why don't they add in Viagra and weed? No, we're not going to. I don't think the Wellness Company is going to add in Viagra and weed.
I mean, can you imagine? You don't have food and then you're making yourself hungry with weed. That doesn't seem like a good plan. I don't know how you've thought that through.
Hungry and something else with the Viagra.
Right. Exactly right. Okay. No. So that's a no.
Yeah, that's a no on that one. All right. Thank you guys. And yes, thank you guys for subscribing to the channel. We are live every Monday through Thursday. So good to see all of you guys here in the chat. Nice to see you guys here. Yes, there it is. You can follow us on X. You can follow us on YouTube and on Rumble. We're also on BitChute as well. So thank you guys for subscribing.
Well, a new report from the U.S. government shows that the U.S. has lost 300,000 migrant children. Lost them. We know that they came across the border unaccompanied. These are only the ones that we've counted. We've got to think that it's inflated by more than that, but this is what we're counting. We know that there are almost 500,000 that have come across the border since 2019, and more than 300,000 of them are lost. Here's the report. I want to encourage you to seek it out for yourself. It's from the Department of Homeland Security, dated just this week. The title says it all. You can find it at dhs.gov, by the way, and also I linked you to it in the newsletter this morning so you can read it for yourself. The title says, Management Alert, ICE cannot monitor all unaccompanied migrant children released from DHS and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services custody. Can't monitor him. Don't know where they are.
Someone in our chat just says, in our Rumble chat says, lost or sold.
Well, we're going to talk about where we think that they're going. Yes, exactly that. This is not an issue of misplaced paperwork. These are children that the government knew of and didn't even try to find or follow them or put them in a safe place. And the report warns that missing children, quote, are considered at higher risk for trafficking, exploitation, or forced labor. Now, we've known about this. In April of 2023, a HHS whistleblower testified about this to the House Judiciary Committee. She also spoke to Redacted last month, and Clayton asked her, how does this happen? Where are they coming from? What is actually going on here? Listen to this example she gave of how this is happening.
We need to shine a light on this because it's so dark. Can you talk about where are these kids coming from? They're having panic attacks without their parents. So are they being, are coyotes bringing them across the border and they're being dropped at these facilities? How exactly are they arriving in these facilities in the first place before the United States government then traffics them around the other parts of the United States?
Yeah, well, it's a very well organized criminal operation. So I can give you an example of one of our cases out of Texas. There was a Guatemalan living in Texas, and he had children who he was luring from Guatemala, telling them, look, you're making $2.50 a day now, but if you come to the United States, I'm going to pay you $6 an hour. So some of the children are lured, like they believed they were going to be Bill Gates rich, right? Instead of making $2.50 a day, they're more than doubling and tripling their wages. They're like $6 an hour. Wow. So they're lured. Some of them are stolen from their families. Sometimes their families are being sold a bill of goods that, hey, if you send your child to the United States, they're going to be able to send money back to you. And we'll give you money now if you let us take your child. And so sometimes the parents, because again, they live in the hills, many of the children had not been to school, couldn't read or write. And so their families, I can only assume, are the same. They're preying on a very, very vulnerable population to begin with. And then they're bringing them here. Again, it's evil. So the children arrive at our border already knowing who their sponsor is going to be when they get here. If you've seen the news, some people right on the border will show pictures of the children holding up a little piece of paper with the name and a number. So when they present to Border Patrol, our fine Border Patrol take that information as their U.S. point of contact. So that's our Border Patrol. Then they hand them over to HHS, which is where Deb and I were working, and that becomes their sponsor. And that's the number that in 10 to 14 days, come on guys, 10 to 14 days was the goal, was to call that person and say, hey, are you expecting a kid? Hey, let's trade some information over WhatsApp. What's your address? And then we put them on transportation with Carlos, and they're delivered to baggage claim in an airport. So that's how it works. And it's absolutely astounding that the U.S. government last year spent $6.3 billion to traffic these children. And this year we're on track to spend $7.3 billion to put children in labor slavery, sex slavery, and other unspeakable horrors.
One of those unspeakable horrors that's Tara Rodas, by the way, an American hero. Vince in our chat on YouTube said, Vince Staples says, the saddest part is these elites are more cruel to them than you can even imagine. They torture them for rituals. That's one of the unspeakable things they do.
Yes. Okay. Well, the U.S. government is admitting it just literally doesn't know. They know they're vulnerable to these unspeakable evils, but they really don't know. And how much they care, well, let's look through the report and you decide how much we actually care. Here are the numbers of what they call UCs, or unaccompanied minor children. These are children who cross the southern border without their parents. So it shows that between 2019 and 2023, the number of children has gone up precipitously. Look how low it was in 2020, either because of COVID, when when the borders were closed or because of other actions from the Trump administration. We can't say. Let's plead ignorance that we don't know why and think that, well, maybe during the Trump years, the average was 67,000. That's still too many children, but look how it doubled per year in the Biden administration, under the Biden-Harris administration. Now, the report says that 32,000 of these children failed to show up for their court dates, but that number does not account for the total missing. Now, here's why. I want to work through this math together a little bit so we can make sure that the government's not lying to us. Of those 448,000, about half of them received what's called an NTA, or a notice to appear. That's you're giving a child a document saying, there you are, 10-year-old. Here's a letter in English and maybe Spanish. And she points out, Tara wrote us, that a lot of them don't read or write. A lot of them don't speak Spanish. They speak some kind of Mayan or dialect. But okay, here's a piece of paper. You show up at this court date in, let's say, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. Well, in fact, that's kind of a joke because it's a child that's expected to get to a court date and we don't know who their guardian is, but all right. But the government then tracks them based on who gets an NTA and who shows up for that date. Well, of that 448,000, there were almost 300,000 who didn't even get an NTA. So take a look at this. They're saying that 291,000 were never given an NTA or a court date. So the government did not have any way to follow them. So we know they existed. They crossed the border. We never gave them a document. And then we don't know. We have no idea where they are. And the U.S. government admits that means they are probably being trafficked. Again, here's from the government report that those are considered higher risk for trafficking, exploitation, or forced labor. Now, here it says that these are the ones that they can't track. So if my math serves me right, we know that there are 448,000. We know that they did not give NTAs to 290,000, which means that they did give them to 157,000. That's what we sort of are left to subtract for ourselves. Can we put this on the screen? This is how I did this math. And again, feel free to check my math because I'm just putting it in a spreadsheet. So of those that did get it, the 157,000, 32,000 didn't show up. So that says to me, we have to add those no-shows who did get an NTA to the number who didn't. That means the real number that we cannot track is 323,000, which is 72% of the children that are crossing the southern border, going lost or missing, most likely trafficked.
Yeah, these numbers are, I mean, look, JJ Carroll, frequent guest of the show, would say these numbers, it's way worse than what you're seeing there. And these no-shows, of course. And of course, what's amazing to me is the follow-up. Oh, when you deliver these children, like what's the follow-up procedure?
Oh, let's talk about that. Good question. And actually, my 72% is lower than the lost number that the report finds of itself. You can see here that they just went to one location and they found that 84% of those children were not given NTAs. So 72% would be super good. They're saying they're losing 84% of any given group of children. So what is the government currently doing about it? Well, they say they have a protocol, but they can't really follow it. They're supposed to check the address they have for a child, and that's really about it. They don't have to alert ICE or Immigration and Customs Enforcement. ICE says, well, yeah, we'd like to know that. Like, here's just a screenshot about their protocol. They're saying, according to ICE officials, they're not required to share this information when somebody doesn't show up for their hearing. HHS says that they were not made aware when UCs failed to show up in court, but that information, it says, would be helpful. Okay, would be helpful, but why? What are they going to do about it? Let's just hold on to that and what's going to happen. I mean, think of all the ways that they can track us, that they can track where we go, what we buy, what we say, our personal communication, but they can't find these children even though they know about them. Clearly, there are government employees like Tara Rodas who want to track the children. In fact, according to the report, some of these government employees are just trying to put it together with spit and glue. It says here that one field office, one attorney created a local workaround because there's no protocol by making their own spreadsheet. You guys, this is not how it's supposed to go. And in fact, The question is when they're saying, yeah, that would be helpful, but what would they do about it? Nothing. Look at this last highlighted piece. No, the last one. Can we put the last one back? It says, according to an ICE official, ICE does not have an automated process. No, this is not the one I wanted. I'm sorry. Yes, let's go back to the one you just wanted to put on. They can't do anything about it. The next screen, sorry. It says that if they are notified of something, they do nothing. ICE personnel at 2 field offices affirmed this and explained that they had identified UCs, unaccompanied minors, in unsafe conditions, but were unable to intervene. One officer expressed concern with not being able to take action in a case involving an unaccompanied minor whose sponsor claimed that the minor was in an inappropriate relationship with her husband, and they could do nothing. So basically this woman is saying, my husband is abusing this child. And they did nothing about it. Like, oh, okay, but at least we know where it is, right? I guess. Is that better? So that child was not in the lost numbers. We know where they were. They were busy being abused by their host.
Right.
We know that. We did nothing. So what does this report say that we should do? Basically track them, make better internal protocol communications. Look at their 2 recommendations. Evaluate the manual process that we got right now. Develop and implement an automated system. So we just need better software, I guess. Maybe Bill Gates can get on that instead of trying to feed us poison.
Evaluate the manual process. Okay, so when they share that information with ICE, and then we're going to also then develop and implement an automated system.
Right. And then the second suggestion is implement a formal process to identify these migrant children who fail to appear for their hearings, and then share that information. Not do anything about it. So let's, again, I know we don't want to, but let's recall the example that we were just given of a woman who said that this unaccompanied minor is being abused by her husband in an inappropriate relationship. These suggestions would do nothing for that child because that child was tracked and monitored. We know where they are, right? So it's just like, can we track them better? Can we talk to each other better? That's basically it. Do we stop it? No, that's not in the report. We're not trying to do that.
No, there's no appetite at all to stop this. And of course they want to hide it. And as we know from Senator Johnson, Senator Grassley, they basically get blocked and banned when they even want to live stream their hearings on this.
Yes.
They do not want a light shed on this darkest part of America's soul right now. And how do you, 300, this is not new information. They've known about this for years. So now we're going to review the manual process and put in some automated mechanisms.
Right. It's a protocol. It's not to stop it. Not to stop the abuse. There's nothing here about how to stop the abuse at all or to how to keep them safe. Nothing. So let's have a gut check then, how much we collectively care about this, because the horrid media is saying, well, these are just GOP talking points. Okay. There's damning evidence here, but the GOP is seizing on it like it's just fodder for conservatives, which is crazy because we all should bipartisan seize on this. We should all care about this. So the liberals this week at the DNC are congratulating themselves. We love immigrants. We love them coming into our country. So you know, don't say that there's child trafficking because that's a GOP talking point. But okay, then you might want to say, well, do you love migrant children who come here alone? Don't say that. Do you want Trump to win? I can't hear that. I'm not looking at that. Now, as a reminder, if we could just go back to the chart of how many children we know about, this happened while Kamala Harris was supposed to be in charge of the southern border. So the numbers that we have above 2019 and 2020, we can blame on the Trump administration. But look how much worse it is since the Biden administration took office. These numbers are damning. That's almost the whole of the 448,000 that we know about. So this is the result of luring those children and doing nothing. So what now? We have to talk about it. So we have to look about it. These are not conservative talking points. This is a humanist story.
Well, President,
if you really care. Shouldn't be about politics.
President Trump, of course, and again, as I come back to what J.J. Carroll writes about in his book, and also what he said on our show publicly, is that President Trump, they were getting them down to the catch and then being sent back across the border down to just like a few hundred.
Right.
I think per week, and just a few per day were being captured and then taken back, and they were being sent back.
Right.
And ICE, of course, and under Tom Holland, was going around and collecting those individuals that they knew came over before them, and they were rounding them up and sending them back.
Well, when you think of the narrative of children in cages, wouldn't you much rather them be in at least places where we can track them rather than them being released into the world to be sexually abused, organs harvest, forced labor, right? Nobody wants these children to be in uncomfortable situations that is holding them in cages, but can you keep them safe? You don't then let them out to be raped.
President Obama also built those cages. Right. So let's not forget who actually put those cages in place in the first place. But my point is, if you stop the flow of them coming across the border, then you stop this.
Yeah.
And they've done the exact opposite of this. They've opened up the border completely, and now we see this massive flood. So, President Trump has said when he gets into office on day one, it's going to be a mass deportation. But President Trump, in an interview recently, admitted he believes most of these children are dead. And he said it, and you could tell he was just choked up about it. That these kids, they're not just lost. I mean, they are gone. They are gone. And this is the travesty of this. And this is happening in the United States of America. So when you watch Michelle Obama and you watch President Obama get up there and talk about race and all this, no. This is what's happening in the United States of America. The largest trafficking organization in the world of children is happening in the United States of America. It should make all of us sick. I just cannot. It makes me so freaking mad how Americans can compartmentalize this. How do you compartmentalize this?
Oh, no, I don't know how
people put on blinders. They're like, oh, we can talk about abortion. Fox News, good luck. I mean, MSNBC, good luck. Talk about all these different topics. They will not talk about this. I don't understand how you can compartmentalize this and block it and hide this.
No, I mean, I don't know how I'm even going to go about my day after this. So share this story, you guys, because we are not covering this in a partisan way. And so this is not something that we think any kind of conservatives are seizing on. We only care about it because, again, we're humanists, not partisan politicians. So, okay, we're going to have to take a collective deep breath to move on from this.
Yeah, let us know what you guys think in the chat here.
We have more news to get to. We're going to talk about violence in the UK that continues to ratchet up as their feckless government does nothing about it.
Yeah, more stabbings overnight in the UK.
We're also going to talk about Portugal rolling out vaccine ID cards. They already have that, but why are they bowing down to the WHO? But first, we want to tell you about our friends over at Oracle, because they have a software that will help you and your business make sure that you are not spending too much time on your finances. They can help you graduate, just like other small businesses, to NetSuite, because it is easy, it is affordable, and it takes the headache out of your software. So it is the #1 cloud financial system, bringing accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR all into one platform. With NetSuite, you reduce IT costs because it lives in the cloud. With no hardware required, you can access it from anywhere. And again, cut the cost of maintaining multiple systems, because then you have one unified business management. Like Tom Wheelwright from the Wealthability Group says, you always want to upgrade your systems in life, your car, your accountant, your lawyer, your house, right? So when it's time, you're ready to swim with the big boys. So by popular demand, NetSuite has extended its one-of-a-kind flexible financing program for just a few more weeks. And you can take advantage of that by heading over to netsuite.com/redacted. It's everything you need to grow all in one place. Once again, that's netsuite.com/redacted, netsuite.com/redacted.
Well, overnight, more stabbings in the United Kingdom, more violence from illegal immigrants pouring across the borders, more boats showing up with illegal migrants. What is happening in Europe as it descends into chaos? They will call you a racist. They will call you a bigot if you call out what is happening there. And if you try to point out how what's happening there is about to happen to the United States of America. Race riots across the country and more illegal immigrants causing violence and destruction in these countries. For that, we want to bring in today, new to the show, is Digby Furno. He is a journalist and host of Man on the Run, and joins us, who knows deeply about what's happening in this part of the world, and can shed some light on all of this latest violence. You've been doing a great job of covering this, Digby. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Clayton. Thanks for having me on.
So let's just bring our audience up to speed here. We've been, of course, covering the violence over the past couple of weeks, the horrific stabbings of those girls at the dance studio, and then more, of course, people pouring into the streets. And it's been fascinating to watch the propaganda, right? It's been unbelievable to watch the propaganda from the mainstream media. If you call out this violence, you call attention to it, you're labeled a bigot, you're labeled a racist, and of course the clampdowns on social media. So just going to paint a picture where we are right now here in the middle of, towards the end of August.
Okay, so, I mean, today there have been more stabbings. There was another stabbing in London today. 2 days ago, there was a woman and some children also stabbed just outside Manchester. These things aren't being reported properly by the media. They're more interested on talking about people who have posted hurty words on social media and are fast tracking these people into jail within 24 hours. Some of these are OAPs, old age pensioners, sort of in their 60s, in their 70s, no previous record. They are going through the criminal justice system, the two-tier justice system that we now have in the UK, and they are in jail within 24 hours. The problem here is that the prisons are already overpopulated in the UK, and now we have a one-in, one-out system. Operation Early Dawn, I believe it's now called. So if you're a rapist, if you're a murderer, if you're a robber, you could get let out of jail early because somebody has said something that somebody deems offensive online, which to me is just absolute madness.
What do you say to those who say that this violence is being staged? And I've definitely seen videos of burnings of the Israeli flag and other things like that. So can you talk about some of the staging? It seems like anytime you see one of these events, or you see a lot of this chaos, we're seeing it at the Democratic National Convention as we speak. Antifa infiltrating different riots in order to rabble rouse. So you see this on a regular basis. What do you say to those who say, all of this so-called violence, these stabbings, it's all fake. It's all being staged. What do you say to those people?
I don't think it's fake. I think some things are being encouraged, and certainly the way that Keir Starmer has gone about this since the start of his premiership, he has turned groups of the UK against each other. There is no left, there is no right. There is far left and there is far right. He only spoke yesterday in Northern Ireland, calling anybody that was right or far right, he was calling them racists. You're labeling your own people, and people are going to start going, well, if I'm a bloody racist now, I'll start acting like a racist. That's not okay, but you can see how this can affect people of working class who have already felt like they've been forgotten by their government, forgotten by their peers, and just left out to pasture. And now the government is telling them that they're racists. It's enraging them. And they're not racist. My comments, I like to think that my comments on social media haven't been racist. I'm not calling for any violence. I want exactly the opposite to that. But there needs to be a safe way for people to protest against what's happening in the UK, because it is becoming a police state, and it's absolutely horrific.
As a public figure, as a person who's active on social media, as a journalist, do you fear? I mean, you think that your words haven't crossed this new line, this new legal line in the UK? How do you feel about that right now?
It's a tricky one for me. I'm not in Portugal. Sorry, I'm in Morocco at the moment. I'm about to move to Portugal next week. I haven't been back to the UK for a couple of months. I'm worried that somebody will deem what I've said online as inciting violence. I certainly don't believe that that's what I have been doing, but you don't know the parameters of this. Is it now illegal in the UK to stand up for what you believe in? It's looking that way at the moment, and this is horrific. I mean, Macron just posted online not so long ago that if Elon Musk doesn't start complying with the terms and conditions of his contract with the EU, that X is going to be shut down in the European Union. They're also talking about doing this in the UK. This is the end of free speech in Europe. this is a World Economic Forum agenda in my book. This is a push for a globalist totalitarian society.
So let's talk about the World Economic Forum. Let's talk about this globalist agenda. What do you think the ultimate goal is for Europe with this mass invasion of migrants? And we should all point out, I think it's very, very important. I always try to point it out on the United States side. The reason we see this destabilization in these countries, in Syria, as friend of the show Kevork Almasian points out, there was no such thing as a Syrian refugee before the West decided to destabilize Syria and destroy that country. Syria was one of the most peaceful countries in the world, one of the safest countries in the world, until the West decided to destabilize it. So there was no such thing as a Syrian refugee before. Same with Yemen, same with Sudanese refugees. All of these refugees are as a result of Western interventionism, imperialism, moving into these countries, robbing and raping their minerals and resources, and taking over their labor, and all of those things. So I always want to make sure that that's put out there, whether it's Haiti, whether it's Honduras, whether it's Syria, or whether it's Yemen, right? That's where it starts. So what now we're seeing, though, is that was the catalyst. Now we're seeing the end of that, which is this mass migration patterns, and we pretend like we don't know how it started. But what's the goal?
Well, I think you have to realize that the people that are coming over illegally on the boats from France to the UK are primarily fighting age men. There's no women, there's no children, or if they are, they're a rarity. In my opinion, women and children flee war and men run to it. That's the way that it works. When there's an accident on an airplane, it's women and children off first. So why are fighting age males coming over to the UK in their thousands, in their tens of thousands? You have to also remember as well, the UK is a much smaller country than the US. It takes a lot less people to destabilize a nation than it would do in America. You've got vast land masses and millions upon millions of people. So, although it's having your effect on your population, on your people, it's easier to sort of test it and practice it somewhere like the UK. And I feel like that's what's happening. One thing is increase facial recognition cameras, preventing people from going into certain areas. They're now talking about a tax per mile system for your car. These are all things that anybody who has followed the WEF agenda for the last few years will realize that these are goals of the World Economic Forum. And then right on cue, we've got our next pandemic about mpox or monkeypox.
Right.
If you can step back and you can do some small amount of research, it's all there. You just have to look at the World Economic Forum YouTube channel. You can see how Bill Gates talks about we need to reduce the population of the earth because it's overcrowded, and the best way to do that is through vaccination. I was vaccinated twice from COVID, and I had a stroke after one, and I had a heart attack after the other. So I know what it's like to be vaccine damaged, and I certainly wouldn't comply with any of this coming up. That's my personal opinion. Anybody watching can do whatever they want to do, but certainly from my point of view, I just won't take the risk.
Connecting the dots on all of this, absolutely right. It is about replacement, it is about control, and it is about clamping down on our freedoms. And of course, the World Economic Forum is not in favor of borders, doesn't believe in nation states, and wants this control. And so does the United Nations, by the way. And they need an army. They need to raise an army of young fighting age men. And where do you get them? You get them from these destabilized countries with the promises of some sort of money, whatever, in order to turn these these men into agents of the United Nations as an army. I think you're absolutely right about that. I got to ask you though, after you had this stroke, I'm sure my audience is thinking it. Have you had a stroke? How soon was it after you had taken the shot that you had this stroke? Well, and then it was about, did you decide to go back and then have the second one?
So I used to run a pub in West Sussex in the UK. And to reopen the pub after lockdown, it was very clear that I needed to get the vaccine. I also had just started a charity delivering aid to Ukraine at the time. So we were driving over to Ukraine with 12 van loads of supplies for the refugees crossing over at the Poland-Ukraine border. I wasn't allowed out of the country unless I got the vaccine. So I got the vaccine. About 2 months afterwards was when I had the symptoms of a stroke. I was out at a race day with my family. Luckily, there was an ambulance very nearby. And my wife just said to me, one side of your face is completely drooped. It stayed like that for 2 weeks. I still get it reoccurring now. Every time I get the symptoms of a migraine, one side of my face droops down. It happened to me only last week. And then... yeah, the heart attack came it was about 8 months after my second one. At that point, I hadn't really woken up. I didn't really connect the dots. You start going on this journey, you start piecing everything together. I'm 41 years old. I'm fit and healthy. I've been active my entire life. I don't just wake up one morning and have a stroke or have a heart attack. There is contributing factors to this.
For sure. And I think many people go through this journey of being awakened. Some people in our audience have been awakened for many, many years, and that's wonderful. And then others are, just have found our show for the first time and have just recently awakened to the lies that the government has been foisting upon them. So, everyone goes through, a different stage in their journey. I'm glad that you are part of the awakened population now and can be added to the truth teller mix. So I'll get you out of here on this, AB. Where do you think things are going in the UK? What do you think is going to happen over the next few months?
Well, I think that the so-called far-right thugs are not going to and the UK government needs to be prepared for that. And that doesn't necessarily mean violence, but there will be pushback, and there needs to be pushback. Because we need to fight for the things that we believe in our country, our way of life. And those things need to be protected. And this agenda, this WEF agenda, in my opinion, needs to be stopped. And Keir Starmer, he is a WEF crony. He's definitely on the payroll. He's definitely doing their bidding. And to be honest with you, I think there needs to be a vote of no confidence in his leadership. But whether we get that with the Labour Party having such a vast majority in the Houses of Parliament now, who knows? At the moment, UK looks like it's being run by a dictator.
Well, my guest has been Digby Furno. He's the host of Man on the Run, a journalist who's been tracking all of this. Good luck on your big move, and prayers for you and your family over there as well. Great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
You too. Thanks, Clayton. Take care.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Unbelievable. So violence there, and you sit back and you say this is all orchestrated. This has all been planned. When you understand that and you piece all of these things together, what's happening in the United States with missing children, wide open borders, the military-age men pouring into these countries, it's all part of the plan. Another big plan is the World Health Organization, the WHO, and their plans for Portugal, for crying out loud. And Portugal, of course, going to be totally compliant and the testing ground for these new vaccine cards. Here we go. Talk about control and your vaccine passports coming to Portugal. We're going to talk about that in a second, and this is about to be rolled out all over Europe first, but they're going to try it in Portugal. But first, do you owe back taxes? Pandemic relief is now over, along with hiring thousands of new agents and field officers. The IRS has kicked off 2024 by sending over 5 million pay-up letters to those who've unfiled tax returns or balances owed. Don't waive your rights and speak with them on your own. They are not your friends. Tax Network USA is a trusted tax relief firm. They've saved over $1 billion in back taxes for their clients, and they can help you secure the best deal possible. Whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million, they can help you. Whether it's business or personal taxes, even if you have the means to pay or you're in a fixed income, they can help you finally resolve your tax burdens once and for all. Call 1-800-245-6000. That's 1-800-245-6000 for a private, free consultation. Or visit the website right there on your screen, tnusa.com/redacted. Once again, that's tnusa.com/redacted.
Portugal has decided to become the test bed for vaccine ID cards in Europe. Portugal, as a reminder, was one of the first to have COVID vaccine cards digitally that they did use to restrict movement during the pandemic. So why have they agreed to do this? Have they not learned their lesson? Well, joining me to discuss this from Portugal is Alexandre Guerreiro. He is a Portuguese citizen and a political scientist who has been following this. So thank you for joining me. I want to ask you, why would Portugal do this, and what is the worst case scenario that we might see for these vaccine ID cards used to restrict freedom and movement?
So first, hello everyone. It's always a pleasure to join you here on the Redacted for me and to start answering your question. Well, basically, Portugal always likes to be the best pupil in the class. It has been always like this for years, for decades, and since we joined the European Union, it has been just like that. No one asks about the reasons why some specific measure is being implemented. We just like to come ourselves ahead and show everyone that we want to be the first on everything. And we want to go even far than everybody else are expecting us to go. So this is basically how Portugal behaves within the European Union sphere. Concerning specifically this kind of the European vaccination card, this is no exception, especially because according to the official registers, what I've seen is that since 2018, that Portugal has already demonstrated willingness on participating on this project that was about to be implemented. However, the pandemic just created the opportunity to bring into force and to reality all this European vaccination card, which is funny to a certain extent, of course, and I'm being sarcastic because the politicians within the European Union sphere, they say that the European vaccination card is, and I start quote, designed to empower individuals by giving control over their vaccination data, thus facilitating the management, review, and sharing of their vaccination records as needed. But let me put things in a way quite clear. We already have this in Portugal. We don't need this European vaccination card. We have something called e-bulletin. I have it. For example, I can get it download it as an app on my mobile phone, and I can have access to it through the official app of the national health system. So we don't need this. And it's funny because they always insist that they are empowering individuals. And this is, to a certain extent, a way of trying to convince people that we hold the power and control over our lives. And that's not true. When they insist, that's because they are trying to convince us and persuade us to believe that that is true.
So, having lived in Portugal now for 5 years, it struck me how certain advancements in technology that we have in the United States, we did not have in Portugal. But when it came to government tracking of every euro spent, every cent, every bit on your NIF, your taxpayer ID, every bit of your health records, for whatever reason, Portugal is super advanced when it comes to those things and behind in some other technology. Doesn't that strike you as funny? And does anyone else sort of say, hey, we don't like this government tracking? Is there a voice inside the country that is speaking against this?
Sadly, there aren't much voices, at least, that can speak to everyone, to a large audience, besides some specific political movements or even some political parties. For example, presently, we only have Chega Party, who has a huge voice in the parliament. However, this party has been neglecting and forgetting about this issue, which should be discussed. I'm not saying that we should at least just deny or reject every kind of measure, but we should discuss it. Let people decide if on their perspective of the people, this is an advantage or a disadvantage for the people. And I don't see anyone complaining about this besides some specific and with small voices political movements. Everybody seems to be afraid of getting into some kind of trap that usually the media is very good developing it and trying to point the finger saying that they are being extremists and that are not trying to participate on measures to bring safety to the people. And I want to remind once again that this alleged European vaccination card was created, is going to be implemented next month, but this is supposed to do something that we already have. And they are trying to tell us that thanks to this app, we can be empowered and we can have enough control over our lives. We don't have it this time presently. Is that what they are trying to say? That's false. I have all my vaccination registration and records since I was born. Everybody has it. If you want to schedule an appointment to any kind of vaccine that you want to have, you can just do it through your Centro de Saúde or through your healthcare center. So what is this all about? This is only to share all our data or our not only vaccination records, but also aspects related with our health aspects to a lot of different countries, because this will be centralized. And according to the official information, the WHO holds a global digital health certification network that was created last year, and they will have the ability to monitor all the information that all the countries participating on this project will provide to the server. So this is far more than just empower individuals to schedule appointments to go to vaccines. It doesn't make sense, and it's just a matter of sharing with everyone our information and our personal information.
But there is a voice, there is a sentiment inside Portugal against restricting liberty due to pandemic measures. I only know this because I saw it in graffiti in Cascais. There was graffiti in a lot of different places that said COVID foi uma mentira, which means COVID was a lie. So is it only graffiti artists who are speaking out against that, and the rest of us are just like, well, okay, let's do it?
And probably because that graffiti artist, he was able to get anonymous and continue to be anonymous. Probably that's why he did it, because a lot of people in the media, they are very professionals on this, to point the fingers and saying we are extremists, we are radicals, and nobody wants that. Nobody wants to be put aside from the general population. So if everybody dares, or anyone dares to contest and to contradict these measures, at least to discuss them, I'm not even saying to reject them, but to discuss them, then we have a problem, which is the media and a lot of influential bodies in this country, they go straight to put that person on a corner and to make that person separate from other people, saying that.
But this is what Portugal suffered in the 60s and 70s with the secret police telling on your neighbors, right? So someone feels this way. We don't know who, and we're afraid to say it. Haven't we been here before? Is there a lesson here?
And it works quite effective, you know, because as you have seen, and you're a Next network social media user, you can see people trying to build or to develop some kind of wall of shame about people who dare to have a voice, a loud voice on all these matters. They rapidly build some kind of posts and tweets, and then they spread it, they share them, saying that this person is a denier, this is a vax denier, this person has nothing to do and wants to have nothing to do with this. And then a lot of people start to spread this kind of information. It's very tricky, especially because of social networks that work in a quite effective way. And this gets easily into the political institutions. In the end, what they are trying to build here is the people who don't want to participate on these kind of projects and don't want to have vaccination, not only for COVID, but for any other purposes, they shall not be allowed, for example, not only to travel, but to not have access to specific services. And this is what should worry people a lot, because if all this information is spread worldwide, then you can have different governments from many other countries saying and restricting, limiting fundamental rights on people who just decide to have a voice on this aspect. And there are some kind of, like I said, a hall of shame or wall of shame, where these names are put and are fastly spread even to official institutions, like the National Health Directorate that we have here in Portugal. They know about the people who usually are loud against these kind of measures.
And have what authority to do what? Just watch them?
Absolutely, just to watch and monitor their activity, and then to work along with intelligence services to see if they want or not to pursue some kind of extremist or violent agendas. But these people get into a database as considered and labeled as being extremists because they are, according to the official ideology, denials. They are in denial about all the things that usually they just want to ask why, how, and when. Easy questions that any journalist should do, and presently it's not doing.
I mean, this is shockingly like the Salazar era and the secret police. So, okay, we're doing that again. All right. Well, we will watch this and see what happens. I guess you and I will be labeled by SNS as extremists for asking questions at this point. So keep in touch with us. Let us. Yeah, and let us know what happens. Okay, thank you so much. So you can follow Alexandre Guerreiro. It's Alexandre Guerreiro PT on YouTube, his excellent channel, which is in Portuguese, and you can watch in subtitles, or on X as well. Thanks again for your time.
It's a pleasure.
That's going to do it for Redacted today. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be back tomorrow. It's a busy week tomorrow because the Democratic Convention continues. We continue to follow it. The world continues to spin. Doesn't feel like it, but it is. So follow us on Redacted. Hey, if you're not subscribed to the Redacted newsletter, that's another way you can get news from us. We write it every day. It's a companion piece to this show. So head on over to redacted.inc and subscribe for free. It's totally free. Helps you find original links and sources to the things we discuss on this show. So do that if you please. Again, it's free. There's no upsell. We never upsell you on the newsletter. We just give it to you because we love you. So come back tomorrow, please, and we'll see you then.